Hello, welcome to the APO Productivity Talk. This is Ted Young from the Asian Productivity Organization. We are broadcasting from Tokyo, Japan, and I wish you a very good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are in the world at this moment. The APO is an international organization that supports sustainable socio-economic development of Asia and the Pacific and promotes inclusive, innovation-led productivity growth. One of our focuses is green productivity, a concept and strategy that advocates continuous productivity improvement with less environmental impact. Another focus is inclusiveness in productivity growth, promoting productivity gain sharing and building capabilities for the less advantaged. Since the birth of the green productivity concept in 1994, the APO has been assisting its members in applying practical strategies and techniques for resilient, sustainable growth. Transition to cleaner production and greener energy sources is part of these endeavors. Today, we hope to invite you to look into the issues of rural electrification and applications of renewable energy, to see how we may address economic performance, sustainability, and inclusive growth by empowering rural areas with the adoption of solar power. We invite you to join our discussion with Ms. Joanna Chen, researcher of Industry, Science and Technology International Strategy Center from the Industrial Technology Research Institute, or ITRI, from the ROC Taiwan. Joanna has been working for ITRI since the start of her career and has been an expert for the electricity market of Asian countries. She has been coordinating a number of projects of the APO and the APO Center of Excellence on Green Productivity. Through her network of technology developers and providers, government agencies, international organizations, businesses, and the academia, Joanna has managed a few very interesting pilot projects about renewable energy in Southeast Asian countries. In this P-Talk, she will share with us her experiences in promoting renewable energy in rural areas, how it can contribute to the development and productivity growth of the communities, and how such projects can be initiated and sustained. I believe it will be a very interesting sharing, especially for the viewers who are interested in solar power, rural electrification and development, and international cooperation. So, hi, Joanna. Welcome to the APO Productivity Talk. Would you like to say hi to our audience and maybe introduce yourself a little bit and the topic that you would like to share today?
Hi, Ted, and hello to all the viewers out there in Asia and around the world. So my name is Joanna, and I'm from the Industrial Technology Research Institute of the Republic of China. And my focus at ITRI has been on the application of renewable energy, particularly in emerging countries. So I hope that my presentation today can introduce some new ideas to you about what is the best way to apply renewable energy in terms of rural electrification in areas where they're still off-grid at the moment.
Wonderful. A lot of our viewers are from the South East Asian countries. So I believe it will be a very, very interesting talk for our viewers. So thank you, Joanna. I can't wait to listen to your sharing of these endeavors and your observations. I hope to learn from you in the next 30 minutes through your presentation, and we will have a short discussion or even Q&A afterwards. We also encourage our viewers who is online watching this to leave your comment or question or feedback in the chat box and comment area. We will seek Joanna's feedback and reply to you afterwards. In this feedback, please note your name, where you come from, and your question. We'll get back to you afterwards. So without further ado, I hope to invite Joanna for our presentation in this P-Talk. Thank you, Joanna.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Okay, so my topic for today is the renewable energy for rural areas. So a bit of introduction from my side. ITRI and my team at ITRI has been promoting international exchange with emerging countries in Asia for the past about 10 years or so. And we've been working with the APO platform to be able to reach out to more countries in the Asia Pacific. And from 2014 to 2021, we focused mainly on 3 countries. So Laos PDR, Philippines, and Indonesia. And in all these 3 countries, we focused on one particular topic, which is the application of renewable energy, in particular solar energy, in villages where they are currently in need of rural electrification. So in my past years at ITRI, we've been observing the workings of the AEC, the ASEAN Economic Community. So the ASEAN Economic Community was established in 2015 to help to build a more inclusive ASEAN through various economic and productivity cooperations. And one of their main objectives, as you can see in characteristic D, is to build a more resilient, inclusive, people-oriented, and people-centered ASEAN. And under this characteristic D, what ASEAN is trying to establish is to make the countries in ASEAN to jointly grow into a more competitive area and to grow its presence in the international community. But because there is a very large gap between urban and rural development in many of the countries in Southeast Asia, infrastructure has become a very important topic in terms of economic development. So in terms of infrastructure development, water and electricity are the 2 major necessities of human life. And in terms of electricity development, we noticed that there are a lot of developmental challenges in rural areas in ASEAN. So from 2014 up to 2020, before COVID, my team and I visited several countries in Southeast Asia to try to understand what barriers there might be in trying to build up the productivity and human capacity in rural areas. So we noticed that in ASEAN, there are 3 major trends when it comes to power development. So number 1 is the increasingly high domestic power demand in a lot of countries in Southeast Asia. So, for example, Laos. Laos, the country, has a very high GDP growth that averages around 6% per year, but its electricity usage growth is at 8%. And although Laos has the Mekong River running through it, and it is considered a very big hydropower producer, 70% of its hydropower is exported to neighboring countries like Vietnam and Thailand. But as its economic activities increased domestically in recent years, Laos has come to a very complicated situation now where it's the power that's left for domestic use is not sufficient. So in this case, they would have to re-import electricity that's already sold abroad, and that increases their costs in power consumption. And another big trend is that the fragmented geography in many countries makes utility power very difficult to develop. So in the photos on your upper right-hand side, that is in the Philippines. So in countries like the Philippines or Indonesia, where there are the country is composed of several different small islands, a unified central grid is not available nationwide. And in this case, a lot of islands are being powered through diesel generators. And in the case of the Philippines, the islands that we visited, the diesel transportation has to be done through small boats they call bangkas. And when they are transporting the diesel barrels with these bancas, it's actually a very dangerous and also very unpredictable because these boats are affected by the weather conditions and the ocean conditions. And the third trend that we noticed is that there's a urgent need for upskilling of the local people when they're trying to provide their own power development. So the photos on your lower right-hand side are photos that we took in the off-grid villages in Luang Prabang in Lao PDR. So in this case, this is a off-grid village that does not have power lines going through their village, but the local people still have power demands. So what they do is they use more basic tools to set up their own power supply. So for example, the elderly man on the left, that is a car battery that he is using that's trying to power his home appliances. And some villagers also buy small pieces of solar power to generate power for basic lighting. And the photo on the right, that is a small run-of-the-river power supply system that's repurposed from the motor and propellers from smaller boats. So the local villagers are able to provide very basic power for their own household use. But at the same time, it's fuel heavy, it's a very basic setup, and it's also possibly very dangerous for them to handle. So for example, the water power system that you see on the right, it has actually electrocuted villagers before because they had to go and adjust it sometimes when it's not working properly. So these things can be very dangerous if the villagers, without any training, try to provide power for their own communities. Okay, so because of these power development barriers, actually a lot of countries in Southeast Asia are considering renewable energy as a need to have instead of just something that's good to have. So in the example of Laos, in addition to having to re-import electricity because they've already contracted it to other countries, climate change is also shortening their rainy season. And so it's also affecting their own domestic hydropower supply. So right now, Laos is considering the use of renewable energy to sort of supplement the power when the hydropower is insufficient for supply during the dry seasons. And in the Philippines, the power in the Philippines currently is being subsidized very heavily by the central government and the National Power Corporation. But because of the high generation costs and the high subsidies, the Philippines is also considering using alternative power sources that the people on the islands can sort of self-operate and self-maintain and reduce the need for a periodic supply of diesel barrels. And on top of that, there is COP26 last year calling for a faster decarbonization and the trend of net zero emissions. So all these pressures are pressuring a lot of countries in emerging Southeast Asia to more quickly transition to renewable energy. But then the next question would be, well, renewable energy is often considered a lot more expensive than traditional diesel power. Well, in this case, ITRI actually had done a lot of studies in this area. And according to our studies, it's actually, it can actually be very beneficial if you add solar power to your existing diesel power and create a PV diesel hybrid system that can help to save on fuel without increasing the cost of energy. So, for example, in the example of the Philippines, right now the cost of energy in off-grid areas in the Philippines ranges from about 43 cents to 53 cents US dollars in off-grid areas. So we did a simulation by taking the location of a certain island and add solar power to their existing system, and we ran a simulation. And according to the graph that you see on my presentation right now, if you are able to design the system properly, it would be possible to add on 80 kilowatts of solar power to your existing diesel power plant and drop the cost of electricity to under 44.5 US cents. And that would also save about 25 to 26% of diesel. So a PV diesel plant, the cost of energy from a PV diesel plant is comparable to a purely diesel-powered system. But by using, increasing the use of PV power, you will be able to reduce the need for more frequent transportations of diesel fuel. Okay, so the next thing that we studied is, well, okay, so now you want to run a solar energy microgrid. So what are the feasible operation models of microgrids? And according to ADB, the Asian Development Bank, there are currently 4 existing rural microgrid operation models. So first of all is the utility operator model. So in this model, the microgrid is bought and owned by the national utility, which is usually the national power company or the monopoly in that country. And under this model, the national power company would be able to run their existing power system and the microgrids with very little trouble. But the challenge in this model is that sometimes renewable energy is not the utility company's core expertise. And there might be a strain on its budget when it has to upgrade from original running diesel power plants to renewable energy plants. And the second model is the community-based model. So in the community-based model, sometimes you would see grant-based projects. So for example, the United Nations or the ADB, they might gift microgrid systems to villages where villages can run entirely, they can run the system entirely on their own. So the community would have total control over the system, but the challenge would be that sometimes the local villagers are not sufficiently trained in the operation of this energy system. So that is also a problem. And the third model is the private operator model. So under the private operator model, the government puts the microgrid project as a global bidding project. So private companies can come in and bid on a project and run this project on their own for a profit. And under this model, the microgrid will be run very efficiently, very professionally, but then there's the problem of how this company can make enough money from collecting power tariffs from the local people. And there's also, number 4 is the hybrid operator model. So under the hybrid operator model, what we call PPP is the public-private partnership model. So under this case, sometimes the national utility will work with a private operator on co-organizing or co-operating a rural microgrid. So in this case, there will be very good government support on this for this microgrid, and there will be very professional operation by the private company. But sometimes because under the PPP model, there are so many people running this project that there might be some conflict during the operation of this power system. Okay, so according to studies at ITRI, we are proposing a fifth model called the infrastructure development model. And the model that you see here is based on our experiences in the Philippines. So in the Philippines, the national power company, they have a partial government funding to operate a renewable energy system. So what they usually do is that they would also offer the renewable energy part of the contract as an international bidding contract. But in our case, in the infrastructure development model, we hope to introduce this this private company as an investor. So what we would do, or what we would suggest this private company to do, is to work with the national power company, not just as a technology provider, but also as a local community investor. So under this model, the private investor would introduce an economic stimulant to this community. So let's say an island in the Philippines is looking to expand its existing diesel power plant to include solar energy. Well, then the solar energy provider comes in, they provide the solar energy part to the plant, but also at the same time, they invest in a new venture in this island. So for example, it could be a new factory, cool storage for the local fishery industry to sort of increase the income of the local villagers, for them to be able to afford the higher cost of power that will come after the original power company introduces in renewable energy. So this sort of creates a positive cycle for the local community. So I think this graph explains it a little bit better. We call it the positive community investment cycle with renewable energy. So what happens in many rural communities is that because they are a rural community with very little infrastructure investment, the economic activities there are kept at a very basic level. But once you have someone willing to come in to invest in a high quality power supply with a renewable energy and with a new investment opportunity, this community will be able to attract additional industry investment and infrastructure. So now with the better infrastructure, it can stimulate the development of the local industry and increase employment. And what that would do is it would boost the economic growth that's at this community or village. And that would enhance the local economic independence to develop other business opportunities. So it turns into a positive cycle and a very sustainable cycle. Okay, so now we would like to introduce the case of Indonesia. So in about 2018, ITRI first approached into Indonesia also to promote the use of renewable energy in its urban and rural settings. And in Indonesia generally has a 90% electrification rate, but in its more rural areas, for example, in East Nusa Tenggara or West Papua, they only have electrification rates of lower than 60% because they are so far away from the major industrial areas. So the power development there is less advanced. And so in Indonesia, there have been two types of electrification models that has occurred there. So number one is electrification through government tenders. So from 2012 to 2020, the National Power Company of Indonesia, PLN, worked with World Bank to design a 1,000-island electrification project through solar mini-grid. And among the various types of energy systems that they are looking at, they prefer the hybrid on-grid system because of its power stability and its ability to save on fuel when it's just a solar energy system attached to a existing diesel system. And they opened the tenders for international bidding, and the company with the lowest tender price wins the project. So this is a very simple and effective way of trying to build up electrification in the rural areas. But then because of the design of its international bidding, sometimes the system quality is an issue when the lowest price bidder wins. And also after construction of the renewable energy power plant, sometimes the winning bidder don't always train the local people on how to properly operate and maintain the system. So there have been a few failures that we've seen that came out of this electrification project. And the other kind of electrification project is through grants. So renewable energy is actually a very familiar topic to many NGOs. And so there are a lot of grant projects for small energy systems, not just in Indonesia, but in a lot of other emerging countries. And usually these grant projects are gifted to them by international organizations, and they're built with very high quality equipment and by very good engineers. But similarly, they also sometimes forget that about trying to train up the local users on how to properly operate and maintain the system after the professional team leaves this area. And so a lot of villagers notice that their new renewable energy power plant fails very quickly. And this equipment failure could cause local users to distrust a renewable energy technology, which is quite a shame because renewable energy can actually be a very good choice when it comes to rural electrification. So what ITRI did from 2018 to 2021 is that we tried to promote off-grid renewable energy with the cooperation of industry and academia. So we sort of designed a series of cooperations with 3 phases. So in phase 1, we want to train up local professional seed teachers so that they can better help disseminate this knowledge to local users in the villages. And phase 2 is that we want to set up an actual renewable power plant at a local off-grid site, and so that this technology can be verified and experienced by villagers on site. And in phase 3, after we've successfully run a demo site at a off-grid village, in phase 3 we want to draft a rural renewable energy electrification master plan of sorts and try to work this plan in with local government policies. So in the pictures you see on the slide is during the phase 1 cooperation project, where ITRI and our technical team from ROC and our teachers from ROC, we worked with the school, with a vocational training school, a BLK Seran, in the city of Seran. So in phase 1, we transferred a short-term PV system installation course from the ROC to Indonesia, to this school. And we also installed 2 sets of solar PV systems for local capacity training. So in phase 1, the photos you see here are the technical experts and teachers from ROC working with the local seed teachers and the local students. So they all sort of built up this demo project together. And in phase 2, in about 2019, the end of 2019, we successfully negotiated a location for an actual on-site project in Sorong in West Papua. So in this project, we will offer solar equipment from partners from the ROC to Soron. And during this time, I think it was around 2020, because of the COVID condition and the language barriers in West Papua, we also tried to train the local C teachers on how to operate and maintain the solar energy system. But we relied very heavily on the C teachers that we already trained in Siran to help us sort of assist us in the actual hands-on instruction in West Papua, which is a more rural area. So these are the photos that showcased us in Soron, and holding the operation and maintenance courses at the training center in Soron. And right now, the project is ongoing and it's still in construction. And we hope that the construction can be completed in 2020. And after the Soron project is completed, there have been discussions between the ROC side and the Indonesia side to expand the phase 3 master plan to other villages. So sort of replicate this cooperation model to other villages, and to help other villages to build up their rural electrification capabilities. So there are some lessons learned from our previous cooperations with Laos, Philippines, and Indonesia. So for market developers, if you are a private market developer, the rural microgrid market is rather complicated. There are a lot of moving parts, a lot of partnerships that you have to develop. So it would take a longer time for you to sort of establish that close cooperation with the local key stakeholders. But in order to successfully build up this cooperation, it would be very important for you to take your time and build up that trust. And so in order to build up this trust, it's recommended that you hold several workshops and seminars, and establish a very good communication channels and brand familiarity with your local potential clients, which may be the village government or other local power supply partners. And it's also recommended to evaluate, support, and to invest in local industries in the community or village where you want to set up a energy project. So you can look to see if there are any opportunities in commercial agriculture, fishery, or tourism, and to sort of incorporate that into your energy business. So something else that we also learned is that capacity training and technology introduction goes hand in hand. So it's very important that villagers learn to use renewable energy, and you can't just give them this new technology and expect them to just learn without any training. So when you introduce this new technology to a village, it's also very important to help them understand how to properly use this new technology. And with enough proper power infrastructure, we can kickstart development in these rural areas, and sort of also support the economic development and social connections in these villages. And we hope also by training the local people in learning how to operate and maintain a solar energy system, that we can also develop a local solar energy service industry. Because in the solar industry, the downstream segment is comprised of a lot of services. So for example, in PV system design, operation, and maintenance, these are all services that can be developed locally. So if we can train the local communities into, or the local young people on the know-how of how to properly service a solar power system, that can also be a capability for them to find a new employment in the area of renewable technologies. Yeah, so these are some of the interesting things that we've learned in our past years of experience in Southeast Asia. And one bonus point is that because the C teachers that we trained at BLK Saran, they ended up being able to establish their own solar training course. And this is their program. I think this was last year. Yes, last year they held their own training program and seminar at their vocational training center to further train their local young people in how to become a solar energy technician. Yeah, so it was very interesting for us to see that our training by our ROC experts has sort of taken root in Indonesia. Yeah, and so that is my presentation for today. I hope you find what I just talked about to be interesting, and I hope it inspires you further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanna. I think it's a very, very interesting project and very, very inspiring as well. Because like you said, there are a lot of solar power or renewable energy powers done by many NGOs or non-profit organizations in different emerging countries. But we don't really see how they address the continuity or sustainability issues that come with such projects. And I find the projects that ITRI initiated are also very timely as well when we are looking at, say, zero carbon or like SDG number 7, looking for affordable and clean energy support for emerging countries. So I really find these projects or overall this initiative from ITRI very inspiring. And that's why I feel very, very lucky, because I know you are the mastermind behind this initiative and you're willing to share with us. So if it's okay for you, I also hope to follow up your presentations with a little bit of questions from my side. I mean, that's a brilliant presentation, but I hope to know more about the sustainability of these projects. I mean, I don't know if it's also part of your consideration, but because I think that's also part of the fun of these projects, that you address simultaneously renewable energy promotion, rural electrification, plus the capability building for the community that is not usually covered by most projects that we have seen. So my first question to you is about the sustainability of the project. So after, for example, after these demonstration projects, what may be required to ensure the affordability and economic feasibility of adopting solar power in these areas, so that it wouldn't be just a one-shot pilot project just to show? Would you mind sharing with us, say, your finding, or even better, your plan or your observations from these experiences?
Yeah, right. So sustainability is a very key issue, I think, for a lot of cooperation projects. So, for example, in my slide, there was one photo where I showed a defunct solar energy system in Sorong. So when we first went to Sorong, when my team and I first went to Sorong, the local government showed us a solar energy system that was built there, I think in 2016. So it was maybe about 3-4 years ago. So that project was a grant project by a certain NGO. And so we observed it, and it was the equipment and the construction and everything. It was all done very nicely. And our engineers actually thought that there could be a chance of fixing it and reviving it. But the local villagers said that after it was built, they weren't offered very clear instructions on how to operate and maintain the system. So they just used it as it was. And it ran for less than a year before it broke down. And after it broke down, of course, they tried to connect with the original technical team and the NGO on how to sort of fix the system and everything. But there was no reply for quite some time, because for the NGO, they already gave you the system. It was handed over to you. So this system should be the responsibility of the local government or the local village users. But because they weren't properly trained on how to adequately run it, it broke down very easily, and it's very difficult for them to fix without technical instruction from the original team. So yeah, and it was because of that, we decided to sort of double down on our capacity training section of our project. So actually, in our previous cooperations in the Philippines and in Laos, the systems that we built in Laos, for example, the one in Vientiane, it has it's called a power monitoring a mechanism. So that project was built by engineers from ROC. It was handed over to the Vientiane government, and the daily power operation information can be monitored from Vientiane, and the data is sent back to Taiwan. So the team in Taiwan can sort of monitor what's going on in Vientiane. If there's any abnormalities in the power generation, they can call the people in charge in Laos to say, hey, can you check on this thing? I think it's not working properly. Is it an internet fault, or did something break? And the responsible person in Vientiane, they will go check it out and fix it. And so what we try to do is, first of all, we will train our local users on how to properly use the system, and to keep a clear channel of communication in case anything happens to the system in the future. Because we think that we're not just giving you a brand new piece of toy. We also hope that you can properly run this system, and so that it can be beneficial to you and your community. And it's also an honor for us to know that we've done good in this community to help you to sustainably run this operation. Yeah, that's on the operation side of things. On the economic side of things, that is also a very big issue. So in rural electrification, the question is always, well, who's paying for it? And the problem with rural electrification is that a lot of villagers don't have a very high ability to pay for utilities. So the electricity fee can be a very big burden for them. And that's why ITRI and our partners in ROC came up with the investment model. So when we try to promote renewable energy in a foreign country, we always also try to bring our private partners with us, because a lot of private partners in ROC are very interested in developing rural areas in emerging countries, because they think that there is a niche there. They can the cost of renewable energy can be comparable to traditional diesel. That's number one. So it's cleaner energy for relatively the same price. And number two, there are a lot of investment opportunities in emerging countries that our private partners is looking to explore. And so what we want to do is we would take these private partners to the local villages or local area to see, in addition to power, what other opportunities there could be. So, for example, in the case of the Philippines, our partner, in addition to wanting to build a solar and energy storage system on that island, they were also planning on investing in the automation of fisheries there. So they wanted to sort of invest in cold storage and sort of upgrade the local fishery industry to, at the same time, increase the income of the local community and to also increase their ability to pay for their utilities like power and water. So we're introducing both electricity and other industry investment components when we're looking into rural areas.
Yeah. I see. Very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. I mean, like you said, this project in terms of operation, you really need this hand-in-hand approach for it to stay alive, and that will be the only way to make sense of such project. And on the other hand, I also appreciate that overall planning in this investment model, that it's not just a one-shot thing for the people in the village to figure out how to use this system and without being able to pay. It's about how to leverage relevant investors to also create opportunities so that it can be economically feasible. Thank you very much for sharing this experience. I have a more or less connected question about the sustainability on the environment front as well, because everyone seems to find renewable energy an invincible option. Like it's so good, it doesn't create burdens to the environment. But on the other hand, if you look into the waste that solar power panel can bring, a lot of PV users may have been thinking about this in this regard. So would you mind sharing with us about your thoughts or your observations in this regard? By that I mean, say, how does the demonstration site address the environmental concerns generated from retired solar panels, so that we are also ensure that such initiative doesn't leave unwanted legacies to the environment?
Okay. So yeah, that is a very good question. Thank you, Ted. So first of all, regarding solar panels, the lifespan of a solar panel is around 10 to 15 years. So meaning that around maybe by around 10 or year 10 or year 12, the efficiency of the solar panel would start to drop dramatically. And about by year 15, it would be about time to sort of retire your solar panels for a new batch. So from the starting your installation to having to retire your panels, you have about 15 years for preparation. And in some countries, for example, in Europe and now in the ROC, we have starting to regulate relevant laws on how to recycle these retired solar panels. So in Taiwan, I think a law was set, well, not a law, a regulation was set up about 2 years ago, detailing on whose responsibility it is to recycle to recycle the panels and how to dispose of it. So because broken solar panels can be very environmentally damaging, so it's very important that there are very clear regulations and a very closed recycling loop of certified recyclers that can take care of this issue. So in Taiwan, we will have a certain certified recyclers that are able to sort of take care of these solar panels, to grind them, recycle the any materials that they might be able to derive from them, and to properly dispose of the wastes legally and ethically. But this would take a lot of very good regulation. And of course, we will be working with Indonesia and other partners on how to set up these solar panel recycling regulations as well in the near future. But right now, for our demo project, it still has about 10 years of lifespan. So there's a little bit of time for us to sort of prepare our cooperation with Indonesia on this topic, because it's still rather a new topic, even for developed countries. So maybe 10 years down the line, there are new technologies that can better sort of recycle or dismantle these solar panels.
I see. Well, thank you very much for the answer. It's also amazing how E3 has also been figuring or considering this as part of its endeavors, like the recycle technologies or certified personnel to do this job, and in the longer term, how to establish regulations, practices to ensure a longer, sustainable implementation of such practices. I think that's pretty amazing. This also kind of connects to my next question as well. When you talk about helping or assisting the Indonesian government to set up the regulation. So I see that the capability building part of E3's initiative is a big thing, and I think probably one of the most interesting parts of this project, because you help training facilities to build a curriculum. You help them to understand what renewable energy is about, how to operate devices, how to do maintenance. So how did the capability building part of this project contribute to the sustaining of this initiative? I mean, do you see such cultivation in human resources being leveraged, say, in Indonesia, or being disseminated to further promote or develop renewable energy adoption in rural areas or in Indonesia in general?
Yeah, okay. So when we noticed that, okay, first of all, Taiwan has a rather booming solar energy industry. And many of our private partners, they all want to sort of branch out to emerging countries. But there's this one big barrier that they can't quite get across, is that in order for them to invest or introduce this technology to an emerging country, there has to be personnel or engineers that are capable of receiving this technology locally. So, but if there are no certified engineers that understand this technology in that country, then it would not be possible for our private partners to enter this market and to set everything up locally. Because remember, in setting up a solar energy system, first you got to design it and then construct it locally. We can do both of these things from ROC. We can have our own people design the system. We can bring our own engineers over to construct it. But then our people has to extract themselves and return to ROC. So then the system, for it to be able to properly operate either commercially or for local usage purposes, there has to be capable people running it on that side. So capacity building is very important in this project, because we are, well, frankly speaking, we're not just helping the local community build up their own capacity. We are also sort of helping our own industries in ROC, or other developed countries, to sort of set up channels for them to cooperate with the emerging countries. So once that they know that there are people or engineers that are knowledgeable in this area, in that market, then the private partners from the ROC can better expand over to the emerging market. So it's beneficial not just for the local people, so sort of build up their own labor capacities, but it's also beneficial in a commercial sense for private investors from foreign countries. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think you described, this project, it looks really interesting, because it's a triple win situation, that you have you contribute to renewable energy development, but you also contribute to rural electrification and capability building. And this is not just to fulfill the need of the users, but also to fulfill the need from the suppliers. So I find it a very, very clever design and implementation. That's most important. I have so many questions to ask about this project, but I think I've been taking a lot of time of yours. So if I may just to ask one last question for you, mostly I also hope to know your observations about the prospect of renewable energy or rural electrification in the region. This initiative, ITRE's initiative, has been contributing to the UN's Sustainable Development Goal number 7, affordable and clean energy. Do you see further potential in the region, or what is your advice for the transition to renewable energy in the region?
Yeah. Okay, so renewable energy or rural electrification with renewable energy is a very good solution to virtually every country in the Asia Pacific, because a lot of countries share very similar characteristics. So, for example, countries with several islands, like the Philippines or Indonesia, where central grids are difficult to build up, or in places like Laos, where the rural areas are sort of cut off from the main grid because of mountains and rivers. So this is renewable energy use in rural areas is a very good option for many countries in Asia Pacific. But there is one very big advice that I would give to the local governments in these areas, is to not to be scared off by the seemingly high initial investment cost of renewable energy. So because renewable energy or power plants is something that we have to work very closely with governments. And many governments, they're very used to the cheap cost of diesel power. And so when we first approached them with renewable energy, they would sometimes hesitate and think that, the initial investment cost for a renewable energy project is so high. Why can't I just stick to my original diesel power plant? And so they hope when we're trying to introduce renewable energy to them, they always hope that the cost of electricity from renewable energy can be comparable to or lower than what they're used to now. And that is a very big barrier for us when we're trying to promote renewable energy in emerging countries, because they haven't. Well, you have to take into account that it's not just the cost of electricity that we're talking about here, but we're talking about the costs of pollution in the local community, because diesel or other fuels like kerosene are dangerous and highly polluting, and they can be very hazardous to your health. That's number one. And number two, the cost for the transport of diesel fuel and other fuels is not just costly, but also very dangerous. When you observe, like for example, in the Philippines, the power plant manager in the Philippines at that island that we visited, he once told me that they once lost a diesel generator in the ocean. They dropped it in the ocean because the boat was, sort of not flipped over by a wave, but it was affected by a wave, and the diesel generation set just fell into the water. And so, so it's very dangerous. That's number two. So when you can have a renewable energy system that's built there locally, it can just generate power from the sun, and there's not a lot of very dangerous maneuvers that you have to do to continuously supply fuel to it. So I think that would cut down on a lot of social and health costs for your community.
I see. So you see, despite all the benefits or possible benefits that we may find from adopting renewable energies solutions, a lot of awareness still needs to be built, and a proper design and implementation are still very much needed, so that we can also empower rural areas in using renewable energies. So I hope, APO as a big network for our member countries, we can also contribute to this awareness raising, if not the implementation itself already. But I hope to take this opportunity to thank Joanna first for sharing with us this experience of conducting such inspiring projects that is contributing to sustainable development in so many different ways. So thank you so much for spending this hour with us. And of course, we look forward to hearing from you and ITRI's good efforts in the future. And hopefully APO and our member countries also get to join these great efforts to make sure that we have a greater sustainable growth in the future. So is there anything else in the end, Joanna, you'd like to share or to say to our audience before we let you go to more important work or interesting work?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe just one little part. So I'm actually very glad to see the net zero emissions trend that's starting to emerge from 2021, and I hope that more and more countries can sort of come together and really try to reduce our carbon emissions from not just from using renewable energy, but from increasing energy efficiency and increasing efficiency and productivity, and to come together and help everyone to sort of mitigate the impacts of climate change that is quickly impacting our society right now.
I see. It really takes everyone to make it happen, to make it better. So I think that is also why APO as a community or as a network exists. So I hope our viewers, if you see further opportunities or efforts like these, try to connect with us. And we also have very able partners like ITRI, like Joanna, in our member countries that will we join forces, we can make better things together. So thank you, Joanna, for your sharing today. I look forward to hearing from you or even collaborating with you in due course. But before that, please take care. And I look forward to seeing you again, maybe in person after COVID cools down a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I hope to see you soon in person.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. And
you.
for our viewers, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Keep in touch. Stay tuned for more P-Talk from the Asian Productivity Organization. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.